All right, guys, the market is pumping as expected. Look, I think the market is predictable, and I think that there are tools you can use to make a really good judgment based on the overall market movements. I think if you really understand the cycle that runs this massive agenda and understand how these stocks and cryptos trade on an individual level, you can crack it down and really see and understand what is happening and how how this works, right? So all this is displayed through patterns, through fractals and movements that we've seen happen on small and large time frames. As you can see with this pattern right here, we've been tracking this for about 3 months, and I want to show you guys the progress here and kind of go back to understand the what we had done, showing this and how it came to be in the first place. Because right now we're headed all the way back up to 430. This is where I think we're going to get rejected on the macro point of interest here, and this applies to the overall markets. Okay, so let's do that. Let's kind of go back in time here a little bit and see where we were at, how this came to be. All right, so for this, we're going to be looking at some videos, man. We're going to go back and look at some videos, okay? So this is January 31st Discord here. It's possible we come down and then bounce back up to the 17th, right? So this right here is showcasing the first cross on the level of support, which was something we were looking for here following this bounce. And then we wanted to create this projector here, this bounce to establish support on this descending level of resistance, right? So going into the 7th here, we already have that first push. I think something like this, to me, is ideal, coming back to test resistance. We've already seen the Dow Jones do this. So I think... Okay, so yeah, we did have the Dow Jones do this and basically replicate this beforehand. And sometimes we have this happening in all markets, right? We have these patterns developing and happening beforehand. This is really what happened with this pattern that we were tracking here, is that, well, this was something that had already played out in 2019, and it was a reference pattern we were using on the scanner. Okay, we go back to the 15th, another week later, and there's about 4 videos here that constantly updating this. This is something that we did on the Discord, and it's the pattern, the main pattern that we were tracking here, which is still tracking, right? So we come back here to the 15th, here, and it's about to come back down to test that 390 level. So very close. Why I'm looking to just average now and then get those end of maybe. So following these peaks, guys, and this is really tracking on the macro chart. When you go on the daily chart, this is going to be the most accurate, right? You don't want to track these on the micro because there are some gaps, but the overall movement here, the structure of the pattern, is what matters. And going in on the peak and on these bottoms and just really timing and looking at that on the daily chart is the most way to profit off of this in the end. So following this push back down here, going to the 24th, you start to see everything fall and follow through here on this video. You're going to see one last pump in the market. Okay, going into what was April here, end of March, going into April, which is where we're currently at right now. This is early. Now we're dealing with early March time here. You can see that this was the fake out that the pattern was calling for here. It goes up. I'm tracking this one for almost 3 months now, and this entire move here has been predicted by this pattern. That's true, right? This pattern was calling for some upside and following this push right here, and that is something that we took here. Now that the fact that this pattern right now is tracking the way it is, and it's confirming over and over and over again that this is the fractal that the SPY wants to do, has me convinced that once we reach that level at 425 to 430, that it's likely that after this consolidation, we're going to see a period where the market comes down a little bit. And I'll talk about that here after this. So we go to the 19th now. We're starting to see everything go back up. And we crossed macro resistance. We bounce on that macro resistance, creating this projector pattern. And now we're on our way back up. So Going back up to the 27th, we start to see everything climb. It's going slowly over and over again, right? And then now here, this is one of the last videos here on 4-3. We got just about a week ago where the SPY comes up and reaches resistance, okay? Well, okay, so for SPY, we're still following the pattern, right? I keep these as clips, guys, just to show you, okay, that what happens here in the markets is orchestrated. It's what I believe is this is the way these messages sort of get sent over and over with these large whales in the market, right? Because there is a small percentage of volume involved in the markets that is driven by what retail is doing, right? But the majority of trades and just what's happening really on the micro chart is the way these guys are just liquidating positions over and over again. But on the macro chart, there is a greater agenda. And here we can clearly see that this pattern was showing us that here, tracking for 3 months now. And you know, this is the approach we take when looking at AMC is that, you know, SPY has been very accurate in the way that we look at what's going on, right? With stocks that have volatility, you know, sometimes spotting the points of interest have been great at spotting these, and we know that they happen. But sometimes with these levels and the way the structure of the pattern develops, it is easier to spot in the overall markets, and this is going to tell us what we could potentially see here in the short term. So what this means is, well, if we climb up here, now that we're starting to see crypto do the same, reaching that 31 level K, going to 32K, that means that the markets are getting ready to start climbing back down based on this pattern. And I agree with this for 2 reasons. Okay, one, this would be the biggest fake out ever, right? We have a period where now people are bullish, things are starting to climb back up, and they're kind of giving up this, there's this bear thesis, right? Normally with these bear thesis ideas, you have fake outs happen over and over again. We talked about one of these right here. So there's 2. This was the initial fake out we had for the bulls, and then this was for the bears, right? Fake out, now we start climbing back up. And what happens here is the same thing, but now you have to draw your trend line a little bit different. So the trend line here is actually a parallel channel. And it's right here. Okay, so a lot of people, I think, are looking at a head and shoulders pattern, right? They're looking at this, and they think it's going to start climbing back down right now. But if you zoom out a little bit, you can see that there's still a lot of resistance to go. This is one level of resistance that we're crossing, but there is still the 430. Okay, and the 430 would be a pretty drastic push. It gets rejected back down, and then this would be considered a parallel channel. Okay? So that's what we have to watch out for here. That's what this pattern is calling for. Again, this has been tracking here. We've been updating it since end of January. I've been tracking this for a little bit longer, again, with the pattern scanner. But this is probably what we're going to see in the overall markets, and it just gives up everything that's been going on this year, right? Because, yeah, the market is pretty unstable right now. It doesn't know what to do. One thing I will say is that once we get here, it's going to be important to note that because there is such a large amount of volume involved here on this pattern, that things don't necessarily have to track the same way. At some point, patterns do give up. They don't fully follow sequences. You just have to understand them from what other cycles are doing, what other markets are doing, and kind of clump them together and look at them as one big picture, and then narrow down and understand what these patterns are doing, again, on an individual level. And that's what we do, right? So this is why this pattern here has been the most helpful, the most accurate, continues to be accurate. And I want to show you guys that I want to give out a bigger, different perspective in the markets, because sometimes you do have to take that. You have to take that step to look at the markets a little bit differently than your traditional approach. Just using technicals is not going to cut it, in my opinion. I think that we need to deep dive here and understand what is actually going on behind the curtains, and here's a clear picture, guys. Just want to show you that. Now, if you want to learn about this and understand this more in depth, like I said, I go live every single day on the Discord to showcase this and explain it more in depth. You guys want to check that out, make sure you click the link below. I'll leave that here, but AMC video is coming out soon, so stay tuned, guys. Subscribe, like, you know what to do. Peace out.